The Diary of Dread. Chapter 1. The Discovery. Jason was an ordinary teenager living in a small town. His life was a mundane routine of school, homework, and occasional escapades with his friends. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the attic of his family's old house, he stumbled upon an ancient dusty diary hidden inside a wooden chest. The cover was worn and cracked, with strange symbol etched into the leather. Curious by seeing the symbols change, Jason wiped off the dust and opened it. The pages were yellowed with age, filled with neat, cramped handwriting. As he flipped through, he found entries dating back to the 1800s. The diary belonged to a man named Alexander Blackwood. Intrigued, Jason decided to read it that night. Chapter 2. The Curse. The diary began innocently enough, detailing Alexander's life and his various adventures. But soon the entries took a dark turn. Alexander wrote about the discoverings of the diary's power by accident. Anything he wrote in it came true, but always with a cost. If he wished harm upon someone, he would suffer a similar fate. If he wished for wealth, he would lose something of equal value. The most chilling revelation was that if a death was written, the writer would lose years from their own life. Despite the warnings, Jason was tempted by the diary's power. What harm could a little experiment do? Chapter 3. The First Wish. The next day at school, Jason's mind was abuzz with possibilities. During lunch, he overheard a group of bullies planning to torment a new student, Sarah. Jason had a crush on Sarah, and he couldn't stand that bully. That night he wrote in the diary, "The bullies will have an unfortunate accident and leave Sarah alone." The following morning, news spread that the bullies had fallen ill with a mysterious sickness. They were hospitalized and would be out of school for weeks. Sarah, meanwhile, was left in peace. Jason was elated. The diary worked. Chapter 4. The Repercussions. Jason's elation was short-lived. That night, he woke up in a cold sweat, his body racked with pain. He felt as though his very life was being drained away. He remembered Alexander's warning. This was the diary's prize. Jason recovered, but felt weaker and older. He checked the mirror and noticed faint lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Determined to be more careful, he vowed not to use the diary again, but the temptation was too great. Chapter 5. The Descent. Weeks passed, and Jason found himself using the diary more frequently. He wrote small wishes at first, better grades, winning a football game, making the girl Sarah notice him. Each time there was a prize. His health deteriorated, and he grew increasingly paranoid. One night, Jason's father lost his job. Desperate to help, Jason wrote in his diary, "Dad gets a better job with higher pay." The next day, his father received a job offer out of the blue, but that night, Jason felt as if his life was being sucked out of him. He collapsed, weak and frail. His parents were worried and took him to the doctor, but no one could explain his sudden decline. Chapter 6. The Revelation. One stormy evening, as Jason lay in bed, a vision of Alexander appeared before him. The ghostly figure was pale and gaunt, eyes sunken and hollow. "You've been using the diary," Alexander whispered, his voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "You must stop. The curse will consume you." Jason begged for a way to break the curse. Alexander revealed that the diary had been created by an ancient sorcerer, binding a piece of his soul to it. The only way to break the curse was to destroy the diary by burning it with a special herb called mandrake, found in the deep forest. Chapter 7. The Final Stand. Determined to end the nightmare, Jason ventured into the forest. He searched for hours, battling fatigue and the elements. Just as he was about to give up, he stumbled upon a patch of mandrake. He gathered the herbs and made his way back home. With trembling hands, he placed the diary in the fireplace, covered it with mandrake, and struck a match. As the flame engulfed the diary, a piercing scream echoed through the room. The symbols on the cover glowed and then faded as the diary was reduced to ashes. Chapter 8. The Secret Unveiled. Jason collapsed, exhausted but relieved. As he drifted off to sleep, he hoped that curse was finally broken. The next morning, he woke up feeling better than he had in months. His strength was returning and the lines on his face were gone. He thought the nightmare was over until he found a final entry in the ashes of the diary, written in Alexander's hand. "The curse is not broken, only transformed. The last writer's soul is now bound to diary, waiting for the next victim. Jason realized with horror that he was now the diary's guardian. The curse would continue, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to fall into its trap.